Should we use, if we're a Microsoft guy and we want to do it in one go, should we go Cordova or Xamarin?
At Falafel, we have a really strong philosophy that there is no absolute correct answer to that. That depends a lot on what you're trying to accomplish and what your spec is, what your goals are, and what the skill set is of your team.
G'day guys, I'm here today with Jesse Liberty. How are you, Jesse?
I'm great, thank you for having me.
So we're going to talk mainly about Xamarin and Cordova and mobile apps. But before that, you've had a long career and a very successful one, and you've worked at Microsoft and plenty of companies. What did you do at Microsoft?
Microsoft, I originally worked for a group that was formed by Scott Guthrie, and then went on to work on Silverlight. Well, even with working for Scott, it was on Silverlight, and continued doing that for about 5 years. And then I was transferred over to Windows Phone, and did that for about 7 months before they wanted me to move to Seattle. And then I left Microsoft with a lot of regrets, because I think Microsoft is a great company, and went to Telerik. Was there for a year, and now I work for Falafel Software, which is a total blast. If you know Lino,
I know Lino.
Yeah, he's the CEO, and he is a wonderful guy to work for, and incredibly funny.
Oh, fantastic. So I thought you might have deleted Silverlight from your resume, but obviously not.
No, I'm proud of Silverlight. I think Silverlight was a great product, and I learned XAML, which still lives. XAML is fundamental to Xamarin Forms, and so it was a great experience. I thought Silverlight was a great product. I was sad when it went. I see why it went away, but I was still sad.
So I'm very keen to get on to Xamarin and Cordova, but now you've mentioned Guthrie, I wouldn't mind asking you, Scott Guthrie is an awesome guy. He's now right at the top. We've seen him go from basically the bottom to the very top. He's executive vice president, and you worked for him for years. What is it like to work for Scott?
Well, I didn't work for him directly, but I did know him and worked for him indirectly, and he's amazing in many ways. I mean, first of all, he's one of the very few technologists I've ever seen walk into a room and get a standing ovation before he says anything. So the respect for him in the community is tremendous. When you talk to him, he is totally focused on you. There's no sense of rush. There's no sense of, you're not important. You are always important to him. I had the privilege that I set up a weekly meeting with him for half an hour. And the first one, he said, "What do you want to talk about?" I said, "I don't care. I'm going to sit down, you talk for half an hour." And it was a total brain dump for 30 minutes. And we did that for a number of weeks, and it was phenomenal. I think he is not only technically incredible, but his personal skills and his leadership skills are extraordinary. Now, I understand that he does not suffer fools lightly, and if you work for him, you can expect very, very high standards, and that's fine, that's good. But as a human being, he's first class. There are actually 3 people I put in that same category of having had a huge impact on the industry and on the world, and yet totally down to earth. Would be him and Anders Hillsberg at Microsoft, who's amazing.
Mr. C#.
He is Mr. C#, Mr. Delphi, Mr. TypeScript, I mean, the impact he's had is just unbelievable. And again, you talk to him, and he's totally focused on you and totally easy to talk to.
And Daniel just did an interview with Anders yesterday, actually.
Oh, well, that's a great opportunity. I mean, Anders is, it's funny we all call him by the first name, and I don't know him that well, but when I have talked to him, he's been great. And he and my boss, Lino, worked together at Borland.
Yes, what a relationship to have had.
Absolutely, and I think they both value each other very, very highly. The third person I would put in that category is Miguel de Casa, because he's made tremendous impact with Mono and now Xamarin, and yet when you talk to him, it's like, he's just a regular guy, and he's totally open and totally friendly.
A regular guy with very strong opinions on everything.
Oh, yes. Yes. I have very strong opinions, but nobody cares. He has very strong opinions. Yes, absolutely.
Right. Oh, well, I wanted to, I'm just thinking about Scott, because I just had an experience very similar to what you described last week. He was in Australia. I met Scott backstage after he just did the keynote. I was doing a session too. And I don't see Scott very often, and there's 120 RDs. And he said, "Hello, Adam." And Regarding that email that you sent to the RD list, I said, which email? You know the one about the new Ibiza portal.azure? And I was surprised that he could remember such, like the list is extremely busy. He just knows so much stuff.
He is totally on top of things, and you talk to him, you haven't talked to him in 6-9 months, and he remembers who you are and what you were doing and what you're working on and what's important to you. He does stand out.
He's got a better memory than my wife, actually, which is pretty incredible.
Well, I have no memory. I put it all on my phone. So then if I lose my phone, it's like I won't know who you are.
Anyway, let's get on to the core. If you are doing a mobile solution now, like you did Windows 7, now we've got Windows 8, which is getting some traction. It's not probably where we'd love it to be, but now it's not about that. We need to develop apps that go on all 3 devices.
Yep.
And now we need to work out, should we use, if we're a Microsoft guy, and we want to do it in one go, should we go Cordova or Xamarin?
Right. At Falafel, we have a really strong philosophy that there is no absolute correct answer to that. That depends a lot on what you're trying to accomplish and what your spec is, what your goals are, and what the skill set is of your team. So at Falafel, we are often asked that question, and we always reverse it to that question is really the answer. The question that you have to start with is, what are you building, why are you building it, and who's going to build it? Now, all that said, I focus on Xamarin. I do some Cordova, but I focus on Xamarin, and I love Xamarin.
So before we dive into Xamarin, I would like to nail you down a little more. Sure. If we were to say a business application like a Northwind, a forms over data solution, and your existing skill set is C# developers, and they're quite familiar with the web. Obviously, every C# developer does MVC these days, bits of Angular, that type of stuff. So obviously they do know web technologies, but you still want to have something, you want to choose the best solution. Right. In that case, would you lean towards Cordova or Xamarin?
Well, if you've really set it up, because what you've said is you have strong C# skills with some web awareness, maybe some .NET, some ASP.NET. In that case, it's a little easier, because barring all things being equal, and they never are, but all things being equal, then that's a Xamarin approach as far as I'm concerned. If you had said to me, my team is super strong in HTML, JavaScript, CSS, they don't know any C#, I want to leverage that, I don't need 100% performance, I don't need 100% native, then we'd have a different answer. But from the question you asked, then Xamarin and probably Xamarin Forms is where I'm thinking. Now, we would want to get a little further into your spec and what you're building, but that's where I'd be inclined to go.
When you look at an app, can you actually tell whether it's a hybrid app, or as a user, a hybrid or a native app? Because sometimes it's pretty hard to tell.
Yes, and it really depends a lot on the app and what they're doing and how much data they have and how, and there are subtleties that you can pinpoint if it's not a native app. Do most users care? Probably not, until they get to a list of substantial size, and then the performance degrades if it's not native or something like that comes up. But you can tell in terms of the development, as a development company, the difference in building for one and for the other, where the limitations are, where you run into a wall.
I can tell. And people are always amazed. And the way I tell, if it's sucky and clunky, that's how I tell.
I see. I'm not going there. Because I've seen us build some really, really first-rate HTML-based apps for the phone.
So I'm over-exaggerating, but it's very hard to tell. Very hard. But there's slight things, and it's hard to describe what they are, but there are tiny things.
There's no doubt that a native application is going to look and feel native, and it's just that difference is there. It's real. The web-based are getting better. They're getting closer. There's a lot of movement there and a lot of improvement there. But of course, Xamarin's moving forward as well. But to go to your particular spec, yes, I'm thinking Xamarin Forms.
Okay. All right. So let's Xamarin Forms. So that's very new.
Yes.
Would you go down the Xamarin Forms route or not?
I often start with the Xamarin Forms route, especially if you're talking about data over forms, because that's where it excels. I think it's a great entry point. You can build upon it, you can extend it, you can go to native where you need to, but getting things up and running quickly, there's nothing like it. And I really like it because it can be XAML based if you want it to be. So Silverlight lives, you know.
It does. So would you choose as a developer, now we're going forms, are we going to do it in C# or XAML? Which one do you think will get more traction?
Well, fielder's choice depends a lot on your team's skills.
Fielder's choice, what does that mean?
This is an Americanism, which means in baseball, if there's a pop-up and you can...
What's a pop-up?
Okay, it's a baseball analogy.
All right, well, let's talk cricket so we understand what we're talking about.
Absolutely, I can talk cricket all day. Fielder's choice just means it's really up to you. And if your team is super strong in C# but has done no XAML, anything you can do in XAML, you can do in C#. I personally really like XAML. I think it's very expressive, and it's declarative, so it has that advantage. And soon, I would expect there'll be design tools for it.
Like MVVM patterns?
Well, you can use MVVM patterns right now with forms, whether you do it in C# or XAML. Clearly, Xamarin needs some form of design surface for the XAML, unless you really know XAML well and you can write it by hand. I tend to really like XAML. I think it's very expressive, but you can do it all in C#, and that's just fine. I don't think that's a place to get stuck. I think the place that you want to question is, are forms providing you everything you need, or do you need to create custom renderers, or do you need to go fully native into the APIs? And those are questions that emerge as you're building the application and looking at the spec.
Okay. And have you got, is the future ahead for you building lots of Xamarin this year?
I hope so, yeah. I've had the luck and the privilege at Falafel to really focus on Xamarin, and my boss, Lino Tajos, who is watching me from across the room, gave me a lot of time to learn Xamarin and to become certified in Xamarin. So my hope that'll be my focus. But, you know, we're a consulting group, and we cover a lot of ground.
Right. So just to finish off, you've done some awesome courses on Pluralsight. Pluralsight's been a real boon for developers learning from afar quickly and cheaply. What courses have you done, which I know the C# ones have been very popular? What ones are you going to do this year? Are we going to see some Xamarin ones from you or anything like that?
Absolutely. I have 16 courses, and again, Falafel's been very kind and has allowed me to do some Plural.
There's more Falafel references now he's here.
Well, yeah, exactly. I know where my bread is buttered, man. But we have a number of Falafel. We have a number of Pluralsight authors on our team. I hope to do, I have already in the works a course on taking your MVC application and bringing it into Xamarin and using the Razor syntax in Xamarin, which is really an interesting option, and then from there growing it into a full-fledged Xamarin application. So that's one I'm definitely doing. I've got a couple others that I hope to do that I'm talking to Pluralsight about doing. And these days I do 3 or 4 a year, keep my hand in, definitely enjoy that. But you know, Falafel is a part-time job, any 12 hours you want to work a day. So it keeps me busy. Right.
So Jesse, it was awesome meeting you.
Thank you very much.
It was a great interview. And with that, this is Adam Cogan signing off for SSW TV. Did you get all that? We'll take the SSW TV quiz and test your knowledge now.